It is an honor of mine to introduce our speaker today. Lois Wortley has been with Oracle for 25 years in various roles, and she was part of the Scrum initiative starting 8 years ago. Her organization is still on its Scrum journey, and Lois is here today to share with you what worked, what hasn't worked, and what the next focus is. Thank you, Lois, and take it away.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining me here today. So I thought it would be important to start by sharing my journey as well. This is, part my journey, part Oracle's journey. And I think having some background will kind of help set the context here. So I started my career working for a defense contractor. In particular, I worked on air traffic control applications. So I actually wrote air traffic control software in my 20s. But before anyone panics, unless you flew into Tempelhof Air Force Base in the late 1980s, you really weren't under the protection of any of the software that I wrote. But I did work there for quite a while. We worked on a very large air traffic control modernization program for the FAA. That was a very lengthy design competition. It lasted, I think, 3 or 4 years. And it led to the company I worked for not getting the final contract. We got out of the air traffic control business at that point, and I decided to take what I had learned and start off on my own and apply it with this kind of newfangled technology that was just coming out that not many people had heard of, called GPS. So I formed a business with some colleagues, and we focused on aviation-related applications of GPS. GPS kind of became a pretty mainstream product about 8 years later, and kind of, the innovation and the, exciting work we had done kind of was getting overtaken by the big guys, and small businesses were having a hard time competing. So I had to switch gears again and go out and find a job. And I decided to move into kind of the more commercial space. And I worked on a product called Selling Point. That product ultimately got purchased by Oracle. And that's where I've been, for, as Bud said, kind of the last 25 years. And I've done some different things there. Product management, product strategy, actual development. And, over the last several years, I've been focusing a lot on Agile. So I think, looking back to those really formative years of mine, in my 20s, first big employment opportunity outside of school, defense contractors, we were drilled into standards. And I will forever have the numbers 2167A drilled into my brain, because this was our lifeblood. This is how we built solutions. Complete waterfall, very strict handoffs, very prescribed, and we each had our own book that was given to us, assigned to us, that we used in our development activities. This was, complete by the book Waterfall. But that's what I knew, and that's what I learned. And we fast forward into Oracle, and, Oracle's gone through a lot of different transitions. And when I joined Oracle, we were doing e-business suite, on-premise software, releases of software every year, 2 years, very lengthy development cycles, very, very prescribed as well. Customers stayed on a given release for a very long time. They'd build extensions and customizations. They wouldn't move too easily from release to release. Then after some time, Oracle e-business suite, we were doing a lot of acquisitions, lots of companies coming in. We decided it was time to form kind of a new product, a new applications product. And we called it Fusion. And Fusion was going to be, the combination of the best features of all of these acquired products, including e-business suite, and a whole new platform, whole new tech stack, whole new release. So we started working on that. And when we worked on that, we said we need a process model. So, we dug through how we would build e-business suite. what other companies were doing, and we kind of came out with this new applications process model. But if you really look at this, and it kind of looks on the surface, if you glance at the graphic, it looks kind of iterative. But if you really dig in and look at it, you see it goes stage to stage, arrows in one direction, starting with release planning, going through requirements, all the way through to maintenance. It was a waterfall, driven, kind of drawn in a cool kind of graphical way, but it was still waterfall. And we embarked on this initiative, and we started deciding what aspects of what products we wanted to leverage and pull forward, and what the requirements were, and how to design this. And, this was big. And this was really pretty complex. Lots of moving parts, lots of products, lots of acquired companies, lots of different philosophies, new tech stack. It was getting more and more complex. So we thought we need more and more of a strict process to do this by. And we worked at this, and we had very lengthy analysis phases, very lengthy design phases, new UI wireframes, the whole bit. And we were trying to get all of that kind of down on paper before we actually started building it. And I think you can probably guess what happened. It took a really, really long time. We ended up kind of scaling back, not going out with everything at once, focusing in on a smaller set of core products and then building from there. But it was still pretty complex, and it took us a pretty long time, longer than we wanted. And then, as we were releasing this, best of everything, something else happened. We had a big shift in our corporate strategy. We decided that we had to move and focus on the cloud. Initially, Fusion Applications was going to be on-premise and cloud. There was a lot more comfort and focus on on-premise. But as we went through this entire cycle, kind of the software world was changing, and we realized that we had an opportunity to change with it. And we decided to kind of shift our focus and go all in cloud. So going in on the cloud meant we had to start thinking a little bit differently. We needed to release, going away from these on-premise once every year, 2 years, customers sticking to a current release and not upgrading. We had to get out of that mode. We needed to release more frequently, and we needed to have higher quality in what we were releasing, because we're releasing it frequently. We want customers uptaking those new releases. They have to be of very high quality and of value. So we had to start rethinking things. And, maybe this process model that we had built, needed to be looked at. So maybe we needed to become more agile. And these discussions started kind of being whispered around and thought about, but not really on the forefront. And I started hearing some of this talk about agile. And what do you think, my first thought was? Thinking back to my background, the first thing I thought was, whoa, no way. We can't leave Waterfall behind. This stuff is so complex. There's so many integrations. There's so many moving parts. We can't possibly stray from this proven Department of Defense process model. Even though stuff's hard, it's hard, but we can't stray from this. So that was my initial reaction to some of this thinking. So how do you fight something that you don't fully understand? So the first thing we did is we said, we need some training. So we sent one of our development managers to scrum.org, and we had him take a Scrum Master training course. And we were really lucky because we were literally down the road from scrum.org in Burlington, Massachusetts. So they had a bunch of classes. I told our development manager, you go, you come back, you tell us what you think about this. So off he went to 2 days training. He came back, sat down, and I said, all right, this isn't going to work, right? This can't work here at Oracle. This won't fly here. And he looked at me and he said, well, you know what? It was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. And there's some good thoughts that, we talked about. He goes, I'd kind of like to try it. I'd like to try it. So, okay, in my mind, my second thought, I guess, was, all right, we'll try it. We'll prove it won't work. So we formed a Scrum team. He was the Scrum master. We looked at some of the enhancements that some of our customers have been asking for a while that we haven't really been getting to. And we said, okay, we'll pick one Scrum team. We'll pick one of these enhancements. We'll go try it, and in the back of my mind and prove it won't work. So the team went off, they did it, and they liked it. And the rest of, my product team at that point said, this looks kind of cool. Can we try it too? So we ended up forming 4 Scrum teams, created the backlog, kind of trained them internally. Our one person that went to training helped them come up to speed, and they started doing this. And, we started kind of thinking, this is interesting. And then we had another team in our organization, kind of a sister team, start to try it as well. So, what ended up happening is this first Scrum team that started was pretty successful in focusing and building out this enhancement that customers wanted. We showed it to our customers at the end of our first sprint. They loved it. They were ecstatic. Something that we'd been talking about for a really long time, they actually could see it. And, as the other teams started working with this, they started getting excited about it. And then this other organizational team came in, and we tried it for about 3 months. We were doing 30-day sprints. And then we surveyed them at the end of the 3 months. And the survey results here, the orange bar is, if it were up to you, would your team continue to use Scrum? 60% in one team, 67% in the other team said yes. Small percentage in blue said no. Some folks weren't completely convinced of it. And then the purple was they didn't really care either way. But the overwhelming majority in both of the organizations that were kind of piloting this was positive. And, suffice to say, that had me kind of rethinking this and seeing how, the teams work together. The folks that were used to doing QA work were in there with the rest of the team, had their hands on the products right at the start instead of waiting for it to be done and handed over. The overwhelming result was positive. And, it had me rethinking. So, we thought this had some merit, and I was sold. So we said, okay, this seems like something that we could do. So we formed a Scrum team with the charter of rolling out Scrum and helping other products in our division roll out Scrum. Remember, all of this cloud stuff was happening at the same time. We needed to find ways to build in quality from the start. We needed ways to release value more frequently. So this seemed like a good fit. We could do small increments, release more frequently. So our Scrum team to roll out Scrum developed the initial definition of done as a guideline for the teams. We came up with some templates. We came up with some lunch and learns that we could use to kind of reinforce some of the concepts with the teams, and we brought in Scrum training. We selected representatives from each product family to attend the training, thinking, okay, get some core people informed and trained, give them some artifacts to kickstart them and get them going, And we rolled this out within our division. Now, Oracle is a very large company. Fusion Applications is a very large product. We were focusing within our division, which is supply chain management. It's about 9 product families, about 50 distinct products, 1,600 people or so. And I don't know the exact number of Scrum teams. It's well over 100 Scrum teams. So here's how we're launching this and kicking this off. So bringing in training, that's what we did. And then we tried it. and we learned and we adapted. So, our thought was that should be enough, right? We've got, people trained in each area. Now they know why it's important. We're going to cloud. That should be enough. Well, it wasn't, because the first thing that we heard from the folks that took the training was, this is great, but if my manager, VP, isn't on board with this, it's not going to work. Good point. So the very first thing we did after coming out of the initials training is we brought in Scrum training and Agile training for our VPs and director levels so that they understood the benefit and they could support their teams as their teams started to learn this new approach, this new framework. So that should be enough now, right? But again, teams struggled. So we went back, and we're very fortunate that our senior VP of this entire division was very supportive of this initiative. He believed in it. He knew that we had to do something different. He knew that we had to have higher quality releases. So we went back to him and asked him to reinforce his support. So he made it very clear to everyone in the division that quality was number one. Quality had to be built in from the start. Quality was everyone's job. Scrum would provide us with the framework to build out, our offerings incrementally and iteratively, and it would give us the opportunity to build that quality in. And he reinforced that, everywhere that we could get him to speak, he was able to reinforce that. So quality became our mantra. And one of the big game changers for us here was coming from an on-premise once every year or so sort of release cycle. If you didn't make that release cycle, you were out of it for like another year plus. So we were very, very date driven. Everything was date driven. What can you do by this date? And when we started moving into this new framework, there was, and in some cases still is, a very date-focused mindset. And one of the best things that he did here is he made it very clear to teams that, now we have 4 opportunities to release our products together a year. I would much rather have you skip a release because you're not ready and your quality's not there than to push it in and have poor quality. And he reinforced that. And he actually praised teams that, pulled out of a release because they weren't going to be able to make it. So that was really a big shift for us to go from being very date focused to being, when are you going to be ready? We value quality and meeting our definition of done more than we value meeting a date in a specific release. So this was big, and we had to continually reinforce this within the teams. We also found the need, and this is a recommendation that came to us from one of our Scrum instructors, was, as we're, rolling this out, having an agile task force could add a lot of value to the organization. It would give the teams that are struggling a place to go to ask questions, to seek help. And it can help a lot of the resistance that we were getting at the start, resistance in understanding, resistance in, how do we change our traditional approval cycles for things? How do we relax those? How do we handle, our code merging and our delivery to our main line? And where are we doing testing? And what kind of environments do we have to test? So, all these things that were kind of showing up as impediments to the teams, it gave us a common place to work through those issues. So we formed this task force with representatives from different product families. we formed our own product backlog to work through these impediments and these issues. And then we tried to keep the visibility up by sharing our results in our executive staff meetings. We collaboratively like refined and tweaked the division-wide definition of done, those table stakes that all teams must do in order to meet the goals of the division. And then we had some focused areas on development productivity and some of our quality initiatives that came out of this. You know, the other thing that we did is we recognized the need to be very visible and to continue to reinforce ideas. So we started a series of webinars of different topics, and we'd have folks suggest topics. We'd have the Agile Task Force. We'd invite other people to participate in these topics. So again, kind of keep that continual learning going, giving people places to go where they can ask questions and learn a little bit more. We formed, Oracle has a tool called OTube, kind of like YouTube. We formed our own channel so that we could post all of these sessions and record them and post them there so people could kind of review them kind of off on their own afterwards. You know, one of the most effective formats that we found for these webinars were when we kind of acted out a skit or a scenario. You know, we could impart a lot of information, but we found that people really enjoyed these webinars more when we kind of played out a scenario. So an example here is we were talking about building quality in and not rushing. Because remember, we came from a background that was very date-driven. So how do we reinforce to the teams, don't rush to a date. Make sure you're doing things right, forecast the date, continue to refine, and as you go sprint by sprint, you know, some of your forecasts will get more meaningful. So we found it was very effective to kind of play that out for them. So we created a fictitious Scrum team called the Quality Gators. We had one of the people in the presentation, one of our Agile Task Force members named Srikant. We had him act out the role of the product owner. We had Steve act out the role of Scrum Master. We had some other folks play the development team, the developers. And then we had a couple people play the role of stakeholders. And we'd run through some different scenarios. You know, here we are, and we'd actually run out. Here's the Quality Gators, they're at their sprint review. Here's what the product owner said. Oh, here's some pressure that the stakeholders are bringing in. They're bringing in pressure around they've committed to a customer that we're going to have this done by a certain date. How does the team handle this? How does the product owner handle this? You know, we'd act these out. We actually would script these. And, you know, the folks playing these roles were actually reading, you know, their part during these webinars. And sometimes they'd improvise a little bit and make it kind of more interesting for us. And then we'd have conversations with the larger audience about it. You know, and have they had this experience in their own sprint reviews? How do they handle this? How do they think this team should handle this? And it really was a good facilitation technique for us to get a lot of folks more interactive and involved in these webinars. So I'm going to just pause for a minute before I kind of kick into the next area. I don't see anything in the Q&A, and I know I've just kind of been like throwing at you like a bunch of different stuff that we've tried and things that we've been continuing to do. If I don't see anything in the Q&A, so I'm going to just kind of continue on. But feel free to post anything there if there's anything I say that's unclear or anything you'd like clarification of. I think we'll also have plenty of time at the end to do that as well. Okay, so here we are, you know, rolling this stuff out, really encouraging teams, trying to back it up with executive support, backing it up with webinars and additional information. And, you know, and hoping that, you know, teams are picking this up, teams are working towards this. but we don't have a lot of insight really into how these product teams are doing and how they're using and how successful they're being. So one thing that we noticed, so we have a bunch of different product families. We have a bunch of different products. They have their own backlogs. They typically have their own reporting structures. But we often have product work that is integration across all of these or very many of these product teams. So even though teams have their own product backlog, they're building out features in their products, we are an application suite and our products need to integrate together. And that's where our real value add is in providing full suite solutions versus point solutions. So we have a lot of work that actually has to integrate through many teams, many backlogs in order to provide real value to our customers. So now we're not only scaling Scrum out, to a lot of teams and a lot of backlogs and a lot of products. Now we have what we call highly integrated projects that we have to deliver that touch a lot of these. So we started looking at Nexus to do this. And I don't want to go into a lot of details here, but we kind of have an interesting twist on Nexus in that we've got all these products and all these product backlogs. And what we need to do when we have to integrate across these products is we form a Nexus. So a Nexus, is formed. And in a lot of cases, it has, a certain duration for us. And then it kind of is no longer in place once the feature's been delivered and out there. So it's a little bit different. And what we do is we form the Nexus across these products. But when we do that, what we found is it's still a very powerful framework for us because it gives us the ability to kind of pull this feature out from all of these products, form its own backlog for the Nexus, and it gives us the focus that we need and the shared goals and the shared vision that we need. So when these teams form the Nexus is now their product for the life of the Nexus. And that allows us to pull in all these great concepts and framework of the Nexus around this and have shared sprint goals and shared focus and deliver an integrated increment every sprint versus what we were trying to do before, each of these teams kind of doing their own bit on their own, having complex dependencies between them. We're able to pull the Nexus in to help us do that. And as I said, it's a little bit of a twist on a Nexus, but it's been very successful for us. But the other thing that it did for us is it allowed us to see inside some of these other teams and these other products and how well they were doing, on their Agile and Scrum journey and where they were struggling more. And we could see that different teams were kind of at different levels. So it gave us great insights into how teams were working. And it gave us the opportunity to learn from each other and to identify, maybe where we needed to pull another webinar together to help teams or that. It gave us more visibility. And that was kind of an interesting side effect of this Nexus. So from this, we identified a need, when the Nexus kind of formed and then went away, I was kind of commenting that, we've lost that insight into all of those teams. So as I was talking to our senior VP about it, I said, it gave us that great insight. And I said, it would be great to kind of come up with a way to continue to do that and to continue to, see how teams are doing and see where they're struggling and how we can help them better. So I said, I think it would be great if we could start to do more coaching with the teams. He fortunately thought that was a great idea and, said to me, why, and I volunteered right off the bat because, now I am fully in Agile and Scrum. I've abandoned my waterfall ways completely at this point. I said, I would love to help start coaching these teams. So he said to me, okay, go ahead and come up with a coaching plan and come back to me in 2 weeks with your coaching plan. So I said, great. And I started thinking about my coaching plan, and I started reading this, great agile coaching book. And I went back in 2 weeks with my coaching plan. And my coaching plan was, I don't really know how to coach. I'm very excited about doing it. I think the best thing to do would for me to just kind of embed with a team and talk to people and find out what they're doing and observe what they're doing and inspect and adapt and figure out where to go from there. And he agreed. So we started, kind of coaching, and it started with me getting in teams and talking to the managers there, the Scrum masters there, listening in on some of the Scrum events, offering advice mainly to the Scrum master and, encouraging the teams. And it worked pretty well, but I didn't scale very well as an individual. So from that, we saw great value, and we expanded and established a coaching network within the organization. So we recruited coaches from each of those product areas, and interviewed them. And, we really was important to us to find out people that were passionate about it, that were good communicators, that were patient, and able to work with the teams, and recruit them and, work as kind of a network of coaches. So we have that network now. We created what we call a badge in our internal employee directory. We have badges. So we thought it was important for these people to be visible in their organization. We introduced them at the executive level as coaches. We introduced them into their orgs and into their product areas as coaches. And these coaches all have their own coaching backlog, and work with their teams to identify, areas that they think the teams could help on. There's 2 patterns that they seem to have fallen into. One is they kind of embed with 1 or 2 Scrum teams and kind of watch everything and observe and provide some feedback to the Scrum master or to the teams. Or they pick up a concept like how are the teams handling definition of done? How are teams doing with respect to having a sprint goal? And then they might bring that up as a topic and share it across their teams. So I do see a question in the Q&A, so I'm going to pause here. Let's go check that out.
The question is, your leadership seemed to be really supportive along the way. What advice would you have for an organizational leaders that may be more hesitant to adopt this methodology?
That's an excellent question. So and we have that in spades still. But what we were able to do early on is, get our senior VP, the one everyone reports to believe in this and support us in this. So I think some of the things that we did to convince him was quality. We had to figure out what was his biggest pain point and how could Scrum and Agile help him with his biggest pain point. And his biggest pain point was quality. And transitioning from Oracle didn't always, and remember, I'm in a specific corner of Oracle and I came out of the EBS side. Those of you that follow enterprise software vendors don't have a good track record when it comes to quality. And Oracle EBS did not have a good track record with quality in its first releases. And then it was kind of like it would get better over time. Quality was paramount, to us as we started moving into cloud. So we found the thing that he was most concerned about, and we were able to describe how Scrum and Agile could help, with that pain point. Building in quality from the start. We don't wait and build something and throw it over a wall and then do testing. Inspecting it every sprint review to make sure we're on the right track. definition of done with strict quality standards, including, testing standards and what we call code hygiene things. So we found his biggest pain point and showed and demonstrated how Scrum could help with that. But I'm going to go on in a couple of slides, and not everyone in the organization is still convinced of this. And we'll talk about that, because even though we have great buy-in at kind of the executive level, when we go down into the organizations, there's still a lot of skepticism and there's still a lot of habits that crop up. So we'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. Okay, let's move on. The other thing that we did, and again, this is advice that came from another one of our Scrum instructors, was constant encouragement. And one way to do that is through a newsletter. So how do we keep praising good behavior? How do we keep calling attention to that? So we started about a year ago, almost a year and a half ago, we started doing a monthly newsletter. And let me give you a peek at that. So we keep it simple. I mean, we get lots of newsletters within Oracle all the time. So we want to keep it simple and fun. So we typically, let me get my cursor here. We start with a spotlight on a Scrum team, a real live Scrum team out there out of the 100 plus. We find one that's achieved something, that has a message that they want to carry. So this team, the Angry Nerds, they were struggling to complete their PBIs within a single sprint, but then something clicked and something changed when they started a new project. The secret here is they had focus, but they saw a big change, and we put a little teaser here, a little link to read more, and they can share their story about how they kind of had this breakthrough. We include our coaching. One of the other things we did for visibility is every month in our executive staff meeting, one of the coaches comes. Actually, they're going to do that at noon today, East Coast time, present a coaching breakthrough that they've had or something that they've done that's helped their team that they want to share. So last month, it was some pair programming that one of the coaches implemented within his team to help them come up to speed with Selenium. So they share in the executive staff, and then we recap here in our newsletter. We continue to bring in Scrum training, and when someone gets their certification, we have them notate it on one of our Confluence pages, and then we congratulate them here. So here's the trick that I found with newsletters. Stories about real people and real teams that chances are a lot of people know. People like to see their picture here. They like to talk about what they've done well. Some good tips and tricks. Congratulating people on getting their certifications. People really like to see their name in the newsletter. This is big for them. This is important. I can't tell you how many times after the newsletter goes out, someone emails me and says, my name wasn't there. And I have to go back and say, did you add it to our Confluence page? Because I'm not a mind reader and I can't keep track of every email everyone sends me. Go put it here and I'll grab it for the next one. So that, and here's exactly where you go. List your certifications here. We include a little dev productivity tip and link for folks that are working through their development cycle. We remind them of the upcoming Scrum training that we have. In this case, in August, we're bringing in the Agile Leadership Essentials for the first time. So we advertise that. And then here's the other trick that I do. We have a photo contest. So we ask people to send us a photo. So the theme, this one was back to the office, a brand new office in Austin. We have some folks working in Austin. We have a VP that went and visited them there. So we got a cool photo of, some of our colleagues, out of the brand new office there. And my final trick is we put something funny at the bottom. So folks that realize that there's usually some kind of funny little cartoon or message down at the bottom, they have to scroll through the whole newsletter to get there. So I think that's helpful. And that's kind of back in the category of encouraging people that are doing good things, sharing accomplishments, and keeping the momentum going, keeping the Scrum journey moving forward, keeping that forward progress. We've done a number of Scrum surveys, and these are really interesting to me. We did some early on to kind of assess, how teams were doing with Scrum. And we've kind of now tooled it down to, we took a lot of questions out of Mastering Professional Scrum by Stephanie and Simon. We took a lot of the questions out of the back of that book, and we've been rolling that out, the coaches and the Scrum Masters, to the Scrum teams so that the Scrum teams can kind of self-assess where they are in their journey. And we're seeing some really curious and interesting results out of this. And this is actually the topic that we're going to be talking about today in our executive staff meeting, is some of the results of these surveys. So we really wanted, the teams to take some of these surveys and answer some of these questions so that they could self-identify where they needed to focus more. And we are certainly seeing that, but we're seeing another interesting pattern, and it's a little curious. So here's just one of the questions. The product backlog items at the top of the list are testable and contain acceptance criteria for the next sprint. So this was given to a Scrum team, and each individual on the Scrum team answered this question. So 40% of the people on the team said always, which we're a little skeptical of, because we try to do this, but it's not always. We know that's not always the case. We try to do this and we try to encourage this, but we're not always there with our backlogs and don't always have them ready. But 40% of the people on this team said always. Some said 10% said most of the time, occasionally. But someone said rarely, and 2 people said never. So this is pretty interesting. In one team, one backlog, there's a pretty different perspective going on here. And we're kind of looking at this, the coaches are looking at this, and the Scrum Masters looking at this and saying, okay, this is interesting. So I think one of the takeaways here is this is a great conversation now to have in a sprint retro. And when we see this sort of, spread of things, that's a great conversation to consider in a retro. And it's a great thing to maybe look at from a coaching perspective, or the Scrum Master to look at with the team and say, how can we improve our product backlog, and how can we get this to more frequently contain this information? And why on earth are there so many people, and we see this in all of the surveys now, a lot of people always give it 4 stars. I kind of think of that as we're probably saturated on surveys in our daily life. Everything from the dentist to the car dealer to everyone, my Airbnb rental, everyone wants 5 stars. Everyone wants the top rating. And I think some people are conditioned to just self-rating and giving everything the highest mark. So it's been an interesting experiment with these surveys. But I think that the biggest value we're seeing is it does identify some pretty big gaps, which are coaching opportunities and learning opportunities. And it's also giving us some great conversations to have in retros. And the other thing that we had is, we are a big organization, and we have, an HR organization that's still focused on, individual goals and objectives, and some of that's not really tied in well with what we're trying to do with Scrum and teamwork. So we're experimenting with this too. We developed a set of goals and objectives for Scrum Masters and product owners and the developers and even managers of Scrum teams. And we use this again to help educate, reinforce, remind people, if you're a Scrum Master, what do we want you to be doing? We want you to ensure that all the Scrum events are being held. We want you to make sure that the developers understand the definition of done. some slightly older terminology still in here that we haven't revamped, but we will. And what do we want to see? We want the teams to be producing a valuable increment each sprint. We want to make sure that the team is staying focused and isn't having too much work in process in a given sprint. We want the Scrum team to be helping each other and not siloing themselves on individual PBIs or tasks within a sprint. So we kind of are trying to cover behaviors that we want to encourage by providing them in this framework. All right, I'm going to pause. I don't see anything in the Q&A, but this is a little bit of
actually, okay. One just popped up.
Perfect.
What advice do you have for teams who are in the position of maintaining on-prem enterprise software who customers are resistant to updating frequently?
I think it's a tough question, and we still have a lot of presence there within Oracle, and I think that the best thing that I would say is deliver value. If the teams are focused on what do the customers need, what's going to add the most value for customers, delivering that value, advertising that value, maybe having customer advisory board meetings or, whatever means you have to interact with your customers, whether they're lunch and learns or webinars, get the word out to the customers about the value that you're adding. In our case, some of those enterprise customers, we still have a lot of those customers on premise, and they're the ones that have really extensively customized, what they've done. And that, adds a degree of difficulty for them to move. But I think the only way that you'll really be successful in that is to be demonstrating that you're adding value, and it's things that they need. And it's things that are going to help them. Like I said, with our executive VP, what's their pain points? What do they need? Can you add that value in that will help them make those decisions and that trade-off and see the benefit of moving? Any follow-on to that?
Yeah, actually, we have one more that just popped in. If you could go back in time, what would you have done differently when shifting away from on-prem waterfall processes?
I wish we had done it earlier. I think back as to all of the time that, my team spent in design mode and building wireframes and learning, we had a new tech stack and learning the tech stack and predicting what, doing all these wireframing versus why didn't we just sit down and try to build one of those UIs? Why didn't we sit and experiment with it? Because we spent, and I'm not going to exaggerate when I said we spent years in design mode in some cases, only to find out when we started to build it that that design pattern never got built, even though it was designed, or that design pattern really didn't work the way we thought it would on paper. It doesn't work that way in reality. We spent so much time thinking about it and writing it down and wireframing it. And when we got to do it, it didn't work. So we had to kind of start over. And it's like, why didn't we experiment more now? Back then, why didn't we experiment and learn from that and have something concrete come out of that versus having a document that became obsolete almost when we started implementing it. So I would go back and say more experimentation, more prototyping, for these unknown areas, more, what could we build now that will add value? What's the little piece we could build now and go forward? And, really embrace that concept versus lengthy design cycles. I mean, that's one thing I would go back and try to encourage and try to change. We're actually falling into a little bit of that trap right now with a brand new product that we're trying to form. It's brand new, there's not, we're trying to build the backlog for it. And, we've got people that are just churning and churning and churning, talking about it. And, I'm going in, I'm like, let's stop talking and let's run an experiment. Let's stop talking and let's try this proof of concept. We actually have, for this product, we have a product discovery workshop coming in in a couple of weeks with improving to kind of help us kick out of that talking about it mode into a doing mode. So in this case, we're bringing in the big guns to help us get out of that mode. And hopefully that will give us that kickstart that we need. But we still have a tendency to want to do that. Talk and talk and talk. I want to start doing. Let's try some things and move forward. Okay. And I think, this next slide or two is going to help with some of the questions from earlier. We're still on our Agile journey. There are, teams within our organization that are doing very well. There are some teams that are still struggling. A lot of it comes down to the leadership within those teams. In a lot of cases, Scrum is okay until the pressure increases. Until, a VP takes another look and says, whoa, I really wanted this to go out. There's still a date tendency. So all of these little bullets I have here, these are actually things that I've heard from someone in a leadership position, over the last few months. Why can't you just tell the team to work harder? Why can't they work over the weekend? Why can't they work more hours? This one, the caveat, this one I include here because I think it's funny. This was pre-COVID. This was not recently. But if the team works late, I'll buy pizza. I don't know about you, but I love pizza, but I think the years of when pizza motivated me to work on code are long gone. We really need to get this done by the end of this sprint, this month, this quarter. Or, we have quarterly releases right now for our, entire Fusion applications. We do release it as a big release. That's something that we're working on and looking at, but right now we do release every quarter. That's roughly 6 sprints. We label them A, B, C, D, E, F, sometimes G. I had a VP tell his team they have to stop, they have to freeze their code by the D sprint, and they can't merge any more code until the next release starts, which is most likely 3 sprints out. So we get a lot of these things, and it's conversation, it's education, from a coaching perspective. One of my favorite answers or my favorite questions back is, what do you think the unintended consequences of this is? What's the unintended consequences of asking the team to work harder, longer, later hours, give up their weekends and holidays? What do you think the unintended consequences are of pushing a team to complete by a date? What's going to happen? What do you think is likely to happen? I think we all know the answer to that. And what is our most important mantra in our division? It's quality. Quality is paramount to us. We're going to favor quality over releasing something by a date. What are the unintended consequences? That's a great question to keep in your back pocket. We had another scenario recently where, we have, a VP saying, I need you to a team, I need you to give me a plan that shows me how you're going to achieve this performance metric by this date. And this team has been pretty cool about it because they don't know. They don't know they don't know how they're going to hit this performance metric or when they could meet it by, because all the low-hanging fruit has been picked. They don't know what the next big gain is going to come through. So this team has said, well, here's what we don't know, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this thing out. And based on the results, we're going to know if that's going to be valuable to continue. And, we've got a couple things we're going to try. So we're going to run an experiment. We're going to get the results, and we're going to use those results to determine if that's the right path for us to take. If that's the right path, we're going to start to develop some PBIs around that. And then once we start working on those PBIs and we start seeing the trend, we'll be able to forecast, we'll be able to have an idea if we're going to get close to that result. But we don't have a guarantee, and we don't know exactly when. So there's been some friction. We've got someone in a senior position that wants a plan. The team knows that they can't just make it up. They've got to get some empirical evidence. They've got to use that to frame what the next steps are going to be. So they've been holding pretty firm. And fortunately, they're starting to get results now, and they've got some PBIs now. So now a little bit of the pressure is off, but they had to stand firm on that. We have a lot of thinking that waterfall feels more comfortable. It feels like there's more control, and it's a false control. So we're continually working on combating some of these. We're a very technology-driven company, so we tend to focus inside out versus outside in. So we're starting to try to bring that in and those conversations in. We're trying to bring in more of a product mindset versus a project mindset. So just quickly, and then I'll go to the questions. What's changed? We're down. We're 4 releases a year. We've got agile coaches. Our annual survey is showing that our collaboration and empowerment is increasing. We've got training now for everyone. We've gone to 2-week sprints from 4-week sprints. We have fewer regressions. That is big for us. That's big on the quality side. And some of the things that we're going to be continuing to work on and focus on next. So I know we're running really close to the hour, so I don't know. Do we have a time for the Q&A?
We can go over just a little bit. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
First question is asking for the slides, if that's possible.
Yeah, I am. Do you want me to work through improving on that, or do folks want to reach out to me, or?
We can work through improving, or they can reach out to you. Either way would work.
Okay.
A previous presenter of mine suggested contacting you through LinkedIn.
That would
or
work.
Contacting.
Yeah. Yep, that would work. Or any of you want to email me, it's lois.wortley@oracle.com. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. And then while you're typing that out, the second question is, what are good experiments for the team to perform?
That's a pretty broad question. I like to use the experiments when we have a lot of unknowns, especially around a tech stack change. We've got new service-oriented architecture coming in all the time. So whenever there's we want to achieve something and we've got new tech stack components. The example I gave you was around a performance initiative where we want to improve our performance for like certain high volume situations. I think that's a great experiment because, as I said, the team doesn't know exactly what's going to yield the best results. So they're going to try a couple different things and see, which of those threads that they tug on, which one's going to give them the best result. So experimentations around unknowns like that, performance, maybe UI, you want to build out a UI and get some feedback on it from your stakeholders. Maybe you have 2 different UI patterns that you're not sure, build out, a quick prototype of both and get feedback on both of those, then determine which one is going to be the one that you're going to actually implement and release. That's where we seem to, where we have kind of an unknown on the technology side, the UI side, performance side. We like to think in terms of experiments. Hopefully that helped.
And we had one as a follow-up. As a follow-up to the previous question about customers who don't appreciate such frequent releases, what has primarily driven the frequent release target? Is it customer requests, internal wishes, or the process says frequent releases will help keep you competitive?
That's a really great question too. And I think from an Oracle perspective, it's been a strategic decision that we are going to release more frequently and we're going to add value more frequently. And customers don't really have an option. There's there's some controls and that around it, but we do expect our customers to take these quarterly releases for the cloud implementations, and I think from a strategic direction, it's to keep adding value and keep adding features and fleshing out our offering and adding value to it, I think is probably the driving factor. I think we want customers, we've changed our entire business model when we've gone to cloud. It's not just how we develop software, it's how we sell it. We want customers to keep renewing their licenses and their cloud licenses. So in order to get customers renewing, I think, we want to keep adding value. So I think there's probably some thoughts around that as well. You want to keep your customers, you got to keep making them successful, and you have to keep giving them features that they want that are going to improve, their business practice and their process.